Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I have a question that I want to answer on the comment section of a video that I just recently did, which was all about the crankbaits that I like to throw, the exact crankbaits that I have in my tackle box during this December through, pre-spawn period all the way, into March. And so the question was, and this is just kind of a part of a question, this is from Jason Digangi. I'm sorry, man, I murdered that. But the question is, what patterns of crankbaits do you use? And craws in specific cranks or shad in others? So let's go ahead and talk about that. And so we're gearing this towards this time of year, so the coldest months of the year. Really, and this changes day to day, but I've got like 4 colors here that I think are some of my absolute favorites consistently throughout this this time period from December all the way through March. One of the questions I actually got from a couple people is, I had mentioned in that video a lot of crawfish patterns, and I got the question, do you still use shad during this time of year? And the answer is absolutely, especially during December and early January. I'm still using shad patterns because the fish are really focused on shad. And so these patterns are super important. I'm going to put these down because the hooks on there are sharp. So let's start with the shad pattern one. This is actually I'm going to put this into a broad category because I use a lot of different shad patterns. It just really depends on the day and the weather conditions, how clear the water is or how dirty the water is. You can, if the water's pretty clear and clean, a color like this is real natural shad coloration is going to work really good. Sometimes, if it's kind of a stained water, I might go to like a sexy shad or a chartreuse sexy shad, and then if it's a really bright sunny day, sometimes I want some type of chrome finish on it, something that's really shiny, catches the light and gets those fish really excited. So I don't have any specific colors beyond that spectrum that I really throw for the shad patterns. The crawfish patterns, however, get into a little bit more specific colors, so there's some colors that I'm going to show you here, and then there's some that I'll just tell you the names of them because they're very, very popular. One that I don't have in my hand right now, but is extremely popular and really, really important once you get into February and March for most lakes, is Rayburn Red. Rayburn Red is very similar to this color that we'll talk about in a second, but Rayburn Red, let's see if we can get a close-up. So Rayburn Red's a little bit more bright red than this. This is a color called Demon from Rapala, and this one's just, it's almost like if you left your crankbait in the sun, and just kind of let it fade a little bit. So it's like Rayburn Red, very similar, but Rayburn Red, that bright red that is really, really good at imitating those bright red crawfish in a lot of southern lakes. Sam Rayburn, for instance, its namesake is a really that's a really popular color, and I even use Rayburn Red on all the TVA lakes. It's just a really good color for that that pre-spawn period. Okay, I like to use some other colors, some other different crankbait colors or crawfish patterns during the winter time, but once you start getting into that like early spring, when those fish start really thinking about going up and moving into these spawning areas, Rayburn Red is a killer. But since we're talking about it, let's talk a little bit about Demon too. I don't know what to do with these crankbaits. I don't know what to do with my hands. But so this crankbait right here, Demon, very, very similar to Rayburn Red as far as the situations I'm going to throw it in. Very same time period and all that. I just like to throw Demon in a little bit clearer water. That's why, I'm usually throwing it with like a DT6 or something like that, because the DT6 is one of my favorite clearer, I'm not saying super clear, I'm just saying clearer water crankbaits for this early season, because it has a nice tight little wobble to it. But again, this is primarily going to be February and March that I'm going to be throwing this. I will mix it up in late December and January sometimes, depending on, you know, if the fish are really starting to react to that red. But yeah, this is more of that early pre-spawn color, just like Rayburn Red, just for slightly different water conditions. So a little bit clearer water sometimes. It's just a little less bright and in your face and in the fish's face. And when the fish see a lot of Rayburn Red, sometimes they want this little bit more subtle red coloration to it instead. So this is one that I've always got in the box. All right, so, and we're kind of doing this out of order because we're kind of talking about baits that I use primarily in the pre-spawn, and then now we're going to start talking about baits that I like in, you know, closer to this time period, you know, December, January, and stuff like that. This color right here, I forget the name of it. I'm kind of bummed that I forgot the name of it, but this is another beautiful standard color with the DT series. You know, it's a popular Rapala color. So, and it's obviously got this nice green back to it, and it's got this nice bright orange red belly. And so this bait is really good. I like fishing it where there's still a little bit of moss on the rocks, and maybe you've got a little bit of grass somewhere, and it's kind of, you know, it's kind of like right in that time period where those crawfish are starting to change color, starting to get more red in them. And so this is a color that I like to use in much clearer water overall. So you get a little bit of that green, that natural green, and then you get that bright red that really triggers you know, a reaction strike from fish during that time of year, because they are used to seeing red crawfish. But to me, it's just a confidence color. You know, I don't know if it's necessary to have that green, but I like having that green in clearer water because I think it just looks more natural overall. So I like to use this. You know, it's still similar time period to the Rayburn Red and the Demon color, but I'll also throw it in, you know, late December, January, all the way through March. So it's just a different color that gives those fish something different if they've been bombarded with all those just bright, you know, gaudy red colors. All right, so this one right here, this one is actually one of my favorite colors all the way, you know, from now all the way through the spring, you know, to March. And it's a color that I really didn't start throwing until I got here to Tennessee. This is called Spring Craw, and pretty much every single bait company makes a Spring Craw-like color. And this is just such a great color for some reason. You know, these fish really react to it, and I use it, you know, like I said, December through March. Generally I'm fishing it in stained water. I'm not talking about muddy water. You can throw it in muddy water. It really just depends on the crankbait you're throwing, but stained water, it is a killer bait, especially here in Tennessee and also down in Alabama. Those are, you know, Alabama, Tennessee just kind of jump out at me, but this color will work all the way from, you know, the East Coast all the way through to the Ozarks. I'm not sure past the Ozarks if this is a crankbait that is very, very you know, effective, because I haven't thrown it, you know, west of the Ozarks, but it does work very, very well. So those are just some of the colors that I've always got tied on. You know, if I'm going to a different region like the Ozarks that we're talking about, I might throw in some different colors such as Phantom Brown and Phantom Green Craw in the Wiggleworts or the rock crawlers that we talked about. And so it just really depends on the water clarity, the water conditions, and the time of year and what those fish, the forage looks like that time of year. I don't think that the bright red crankbaits, like I've said throughout this video, really start working at their best, at their peak performance until, you know, say you know, the late January time period, February and March. Of course, it changes every single year. So, and it really just depends on the lake that you're fishing and the region that you live in. So anyways, guys, those are just some thoughts on some of my favorite crankbait colors during this time of year, the colder water months. And so if you have any questions, make sure you drop a comment below. I love doing these videos for you. You know, and answering these questions. So yeah, keep sending those comments to me. But anyways, thanks for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. And before we go, don't forget you can get most of the colors and in different crankbaits at 44tackle.com. I'm going to put some links in the description of this video where I give you some examples of some of the colors that I'm talking about with different baits. And you can, if you buy those crankbaits, those colors on 44tackle.com using those links, you'll get 10% off your order. They are awesome. And make sure you buy some Hayabusa treble hooks too to replace those stock treble hooks on your crankbaits. Super, super important to get those stock hooks off and get some ultra sharp hooks on. So thanks again. I'll see you out on the water.